Hello and welcome to the C3 Method Podcast with your host, Robert Polinick. Today we're going to discuss 3 strategies you can use for a 12-week transformation. Now, this can definitely go longer than 12 weeks if you'd like. However, I chose 12 because it does hit better in search engine optimization, but it gives a clear perspective of what would be, in my mind, a very quick turnaround with these types of structures. The structures we're going to use will promote fat loss, but we're definitely going to lean into water loss as well, so water retention loss. If I'm helping a client do a weight loss transformation, say we're doing something in 24 to 48 hours to make weight for a powerlifting competition, wrestling match, or whatever it might be, that's purely water manipulation. What we're going to talk about today is going to cause water retention reduction, but it's going to cause fat loss as well. So for example, I have done 3 challenges for myself over the years where my goal was to lose as much weight as I could, and I set a time frame and a weight goal of 50 pounds, and I ended up losing 50 pounds in 10 weeks twice and 50 pounds in 8 weeks once. So those are huge. Now, I know that a large portion of that was going to be water retention loss, like water loss. So I knew that the 50 pounds I was losing wasn't going to stay off. If you have any kind of fast, transformative type change, you're likely not going to be able to keep all of that. Typically, what I like to tell clients is the faster you do it, the less of it you keep. If I'm doing a prolonged diet, one time I lost 70 pounds over a 10-month period, and I kept as much of that as I wanted. That was to kind of clean up, feel healthier. I went down from, I believe it was like 277 down to 207. And it was to clean up and kind of get to a leaner physique. I was leading into powerlifting, and I knew that my strength at the time for the 270 some pound weight was not competitive. So I wanted to diet down, lose a bunch of body fat, and then start that process from a leaner physique and kind of grow into the weight classes, which worked out really well. So I was able to compete, I think, at 220, then 242, then 275, and even competed up in the 308 pound class. So with that one, since it was 10 months, I knew I was going to be able to keep most of that if I wanted. When I got down to the bottom, I didn't continue to diet in that way because I did want to start to grow. So I intentionally started gaining some of that weight back. Now with these shorter time frames of 10 weeks or less, I knew that a significant portion of that was going to be water. So once I ended the dietary structure that allowed me to drop all of that weight, it wasn't a sustainable structure. So once I then transitioned to a sustainable structure, I knew that the water weight loss was going to rebound and then level back off. So to give you some estimation, I might have lost 50 pounds in total, and then within a week I probably was able to gain back 10 to 12 pounds of just regular water retention balance, like it kind of super compensated and shot back up. My body then learned to trust me again, and then it lowered back down. So out of the 50 in 10 weeks, if you go another 10 weeks, I was able to keep about 30, 35 of that. And that's actually very normal. Again, you can think of the faster I make the change, the less of the change I get to keep. And that's usually correlated to the fact that the dietary structures, the things that we do to cause the weight to come off, aren't sustainable things. The 3 strategies we're going to talk about today are strategies I've used in my personal life, but then I've also used with clients as well. And I thought it would be fun to share that there are multiple ways of doing this. If I could sit here and think of it, I could probably sit here and think of a dozen ways of doing it. I just want to present 3 because that's plenty enough for us to be fulfilled in regards to I learned some things, but I don't feel overwhelmed by things. The first structure is a simple calorie control, where you would want to figure out what your BMR is, and you can do that on like Google. So you can go to calculator, I think it's like calculator.com. You can just type in BMR calculator And on Google, you can use a BMR calculator and find out what your BMR is. Your BMR is your basal metabolic rate. That's how many calories your body burns doing absolutely nothing. Just fueling organs and general maintenance, keeping you alive type activities. Usually when I'm having somebody diet, we don't go below the BMR because the body then starts to down-regulate its caloric usage, and it becomes harder and harder and harder to lose body fat in the long run. When we're doing a short temporary diet, maybe a 12-week transformation, we can push lower than the BMR. However, we know then that that's going to cause more of a compensating rebound afterwards. What I'm referring to when I'm talking about the body kind of reducing its calorie usage is it will adjust its metabolism, is a way of us saying that, is its caloric allocation to non-essential processes. What in the heck is that? Is the calories we burn helping to grow our hair, our skin, our nails, regulate body temperature. Our body uses calories for a lot of things that is related to overall health. But if our body gives less calories to growing our hair, we don't immediately die, but it does save some calories. If it does the same thing towards repairing skin or muscle damage, all these other processes in the body that aren't immediate death, if it slows that down or gives less calories to it, the body will start to do that once you go under the BMR. So initially what I like to do is have somebody, if they're going for a very aggressive weight cut, is for us to find out what their BMR is and have them aim for that every day. Now, if they're new to this, they might not be able to do that in regards to controlling hunger. We have strategies that we can use. For example, our meal structure is going to be high in fats because they digest slower than carbohydrates. We're going to have high amounts of protein because they help us feel full. And our body actually burns a lot of calories trying to break down protein for energy. And then we're also going to increase fiber as much as that person's digestive system can handle. So our diet is going to be structured around high protein, high fat, and high fiber. That's going to allow the person to feel more satiated between their meals since their meals will digest slower overall. That's one of the big things we can do. Another one is just staying busy. So there's the phrase, idle hands are the devil's playground. The second we're not moving, we're going to be thinking about food. And so it's good to pick up hobbies. It's good to stay busy. It's good to stay active. And the more you can move, the better you're going to do with hunger control. It keeps your brain active. It keeps you focusing on something other than how hungry you are. And then the common way that people are using it now to manage hunger for large caloric deficit diets is using GLPs. So GLP-1s or 2s, Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, all those things. Those are going to help reduce like food noise is the terminology because again, it slows down the digestive tract. Now we can do that naturally by choosing higher protein, higher fat, and higher fiber meals. However, the GLPs help do that for us regardless of what we eat. It's not necessarily the best thing, but it's an option. That's what people will use the GLP drugs for, is to help reduce their hunger. And then that allows them to kind of eat more of whatever they want. They don't need to necessarily focus into high protein, high fiber, high fat meals in order to get that slower digestion. Now, those are just 3 strategies for controlling hunger. Another strategy is drinking a lot of liquids. If your belly's full of liquids, it tends not to notice that it's hungry as much. I will use this a lot when I'm doing dieting strategies and tactics. I'll drink a lot of fluid throughout the day, especially in between my meals. So if I space my meals out on average 5 to 6 hours apart, then about 2 hours after a meal, I'll drink a big shaker of fluid. I usually like to use a little bit of a flavoring just to make the liquid more appetizing. I use little, I think they're called Starburst packets. They're like 5 calories in a packet. But I'll use some kind of drink flavoring to make it more exciting and more interesting. And then I actually also get hunger blunting effects from caffeine. So I'll time my caffeine intake between my meals as well. So there's, right there's 5 strategies you can use for hunger control. There's a lot of them. But that's something you're going to want to implement, because if you're pushing your calories down to BMR or even lower, you are going to feel hungry. So those are some ideas you can use for hunger control. When we think of this strategy, strategy number one, it's just simply calorie control. You're going to track your calories. And for my clients, I do like having them track their protein, so that way we can make sure that the protein is as high as what is an appropriate range for them. And again, that's for the hunger blunting effect, but it also helps us maintain muscle repair, muscle maintenance, try not to lose so much muscle while we're in these crazy dieting strategies. But calorie control, eating, essentially, you could eat like a lot of pretty much what you want. It's going to change how you feel, but you can eat what you want. But as long as you're controlling calories, you're tracking calories, and you're down by your BMR or a little bit lower, that is one strategy, a dietary strategy for a quick transformation. Another strategy that we have would be to just eat the same food every meal. This is extreme. I completely understand. However, I have done it very successfully, and I've had other clients do it successfully as well, so I do want to present it as an option. For me, when I did the 50 pounds in 8 weeks, so I lost 50 pounds in 8 weeks diet, I actually chose to do ground turkey, brown rice, and marinara sauce. And that's the only food I ate the entire time. That was breakfast, lunch, dinner, and every meal in between. I only gave my body that option. The comical reason why is I hate those foods. So I do not like ground turkey. I do not like brown rice. Marinara sauce I actually do like, but not on ground turkey and brown rice. The reason why I chose that was I was able to get the ground turkey for my protein. The brown rice is a slower digesting rice, and my digestive tract does very well with it. I don't like it for the flavor component, and I don't feel like a ton of energy from it. My carb source of preference is actually jasmine rice, or I do vegetables. If I got to pick kind of like two, those would be my favorite two carb sources, is jasmine rice and vegetables. Fruit. Jasmine rice and fruit. There we go. Those would be my two choices, jasmine rice and fruit. The reason why I chose brown rice is it's still digested well for me, but it's slower digesting than jasmine rice. When I do jasmine rice, I am hungrier sooner between my meals than if I were to do an equal calorie equivalent of brown rice. For that diet strategy, the reason why we would choose same foods repeated. Now you can maybe choose, if you want, like the same breakfast every day, then a different food but same lunch, then different food and same dinner. You don't have to do specifically the exact same food every single meal of every day. But that structure works because you're limiting choices, you're limiting options, and you're just telling your body, hey, this is the only thing you get. So if you're really hungry, you'll eat this. If you just are bored and maybe you're kind of not really that hungry, then you're going to want to try to eat a bunch of other foods. The body's going to have a lot of cravings. Whereas if you just tell the body, hey, you only get this option. This is the only option you have. If you're hungry enough, you'll eat this. If you won't eat this, then you're clearly not that hungry. That actually does shut down cravings. If you stick with it long enough, for everybody's a little bit different. Usually what I find is it's somewhere between 3 to 7 days. Some people, if you only give them one option and they do it for 3 days in a row, their body will automatically already start lessening cravings. Some people, it might take up to 7 days. But that's typically what we see, is if you keep the same food, repeat, the intensity of cravings starts to go down, and the body basically just gives up on sending cravings because it realizes that it doesn't have a choice. Sometimes what gets people in trouble is when they have choices. They'll start to say, oh, well, I could have this or this, and they're like, well, I really like that second thing. And then when they have that second thing, they maybe don't measure it quite as accurate, and they'll add a little bit more, and that adds a little more calories, so it makes it more susceptible to mental weakness moments where you're going to start to eat more than you really should. The other benefit of having repeated meals is you don't have to track anything. In the sense of, okay, I know if I have X amount of ground turkey, X amount of brown rice, X amount of marinara sauce, let's just say the meal comes out to 600 calories. Okay, I can have 3 to 4 of those a day. I'm probably still going to be in a good deficit, and I'll be fine. And then it's like, okay, well, I had 2 of those meals that day. I probably, if I'm hungry enough and I want a third, I have space for that. If I've already had 4, I need to go be busy and go do something else because that's already too many calories. So instead of tracking calories, it's just like, okay, how many times did I eat that meal today? And if I know what my range is, if it's 3 to 4, if I'm anywhere from 3 to 4, then that's what I get. It makes it much easier than having to track calories of a bunch of different foods and put that into apps and track that all day. So if you're a busy person, you might find that repeated meals works better for you. Now again, you might have a breakfast that you repeat, then a different food, but lunch that you repeat, and a different dinner that you repeat. A lot of clients, when they're looking at lifestyle structures, they actually tend to use that structure with a little bit more variety. They might have, say, 2 or 3 breakfasts, 2 or 3 lunch, and then they leave their dinner open. And they find that usually they're eating breakfast and lunch when they're busy, so they don't really care about whether they enjoy the food or not that much. As long as it's okay, they're good. So they'll just eat the same breakfast every day, the same lunch every day, but then they'll have more variety in their dinners. And since it's only one meal of the day that's actually creating variety, meaning we might have variable caloric intake, variable protein intake, there's only one meal that can kind of quote unquote mess us up. So a lot of people will use a repeated meal structure even as a lifestyle component, lifestyle structure, because it consistency in the breakfast and lunch, it makes it then easier just to really only have to manage one meal a day in regards to kind of paying attention to calories and protein. Then the third structure we have is a cycling intermittent fasting. This can be structured in dozens and dozens and dozens of ways. One of my recent clients I took through this structure, we had an AM and a PM window. And for them, what we did is they got up at around like 5:30 or so. So their AM window was supposed to be before work. We had it set between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. So get up, get yourself moving, get your kids ready, do what you got to do, but get in your meal before work started, which for them started at 8 a.m. So they had 6 to 8 that they were going to eat. And in that meal, we focused on high protein, high fats, and high fiber. That way, it kind of made them feel fuller throughout the day. Around the middle of the day, they got super busy. They weren't really paying attention to whether or not they were hungry that much. We also tried like the caffeine drinks, a lot of fluids. We played around with the structures that helped with hunger control for them. They were also on a really low level GLP, and that worked out well to kind of calm down some of that afternoon for them. And then their PM window, we had after work. Their work is over around 4:30, 5 o'clock. So we gave them from around then. So we just said like 5 to 7. But if they wanted to eat, it started at 4:30, oh well. But it was 5 to 7 was kind of the evening range. And in that range, again, we focused on high protein, high fats, and high fiber because they were going to eat that meal and then not eat again until the next morning. So we wanted, again, to have a meal that digested really slowly, and that way they weren't left with, an empty belly and the body looking for food and fuel. They were able to eat that meal between 5 and 7 and then go to bed around 9:30, 10 and not feel hungry yet, meaning that they didn't get hungry right before bed, then all of a sudden their sleep quality was really low. That tends to happen if people use intermittent fasting structures, but they focus on a lot of carbohydrates. If their time window is too far away from bed, they start to get hungry again before bed. So if that is you, if you're struggling with that, you can replace some of your carbohydrates with fats. You can increase your protein within that meal, and you can actually add some fiber to that meal as well. And that will help slow down digestion of that meal. And then that way you won't get as hungry right before bed, and you can have a better quality of sleep. So those three strategies are strategies that we've used successfully. I've used them myself, and I've used them with clients. Like I said, I've lost 50 pounds in 10 weeks or less 3 different times. We know that a significant portion of that is going to be water. Again, the faster you lose it, the less of it you get to keep, unfortunately. But those are 3 strategies you can use if you're looking for a fast transformation. You have basic calorie control. Just get online, find a BMR calculator, find out what your BMR is, eat down to your BMR, and then we said you can manage your hunger by making sure your meals have high protein, high fat, and high fiber. Stay active and busy as much as you can. Drink a lot of fluid between your meals. And then I said my strategy is also caffeine. Caffeine is a hunger blunter for me, so that works really well. You can also just do a quick, Google search of ways to manage hunger, and that works. And then the 5th strategy we did mention was using a GLP. And if you do use that, I would definitely recommend using the lowest dose you can get away with. Try not to go too high too quickly. your body does become tolerant to that. So you want to start with as little and as low as possible. So I would actually use all of the hunger control strategies that we have along with the GLP, and especially focusing on meals of high protein, high fats, and high fiber. If you can structure your meals in that way, you'll notice that you need a lot less of the GLP, saves you money, and then also it gives you room to increase later on if you need to. For some of the clients I work with, we've had to lose weight before they could get a gastric bypass surgery. And for them, it was really important for us to have some room to, once we start, be able to have some options later on, because they needed to get down to a safe weight for the surgery. So if we used, everything we have in our arsenal right at the front, and then they kind of burned out and their body got used to it, but they weren't the weight they needed, we were screwed. So depending on how far of a change you need to make, that becomes even more important, not to use all the weapons right away. You want to make sure that you give yourself leeway to be able to increase something such as the GLPs. So using the other strategies is very helpful to help mitigate how much medication or supplements or whatever it is, like prescriptions you might need along the way. Cool. So hopefully that was helpful. It's kind of fun to hear the different strategies that we can use. If you are interested in any kind of help like this, if you're an individual and you just want some one-on-one coaching, we do offer that. You can learn more about it on our website, which is www.c3method.com. The 3 is spelled out T-H-R-E-E, so it's C-T-H-R-E-E method.com. And then if you're a coach or if you're in a health-related business and you want to learn how to coach individuals and people through a nutrition coaching system, we do help businesses and personal trainers with that. You can learn more about that on the website as well. With that one, we go through and teach you our nutrition system. We also teach you how to interact with the clients, how to track progress, how to market the service, how to price the service, and we offer a 3-month support as you're implementing that service with your customers and clients. So if you're interested in that, you can reach out on the website as well. Thank you very much for listening and or watching. I hope that this was helpful. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section below or reach out to us on the website. I appreciate your time, and I want to make sure you get everything you need for the time you invested into us. So I'm always happy to invest back into you. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much.